is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Sex Education, Season 3, Episode 2. In this episode, Isaac comes clean. He just tells Maeve the truth. I have to be honest, my respect for him went up a little bit that he actually confessed, because I assumed he was just going to be found out eventually. That said, it goes pretty much how I expected it to go. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Ashleigh for commissioning this episode. Ashleigh is here in the chat, and it's lambing season, and she lost a nail in the U. So that's how her day is going. So, guys, this is so packed, this episode. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is the fact that Jean and Jakob are going to try again. I am so excited. No, genuinely, guys. I do not think that you understand. I am just kind of unhealthily into Jakob at this point. He looks so good this season. He's been hot, but this season he's just got a little extra polish on him somehow. My Lord, that man is fine. And when he is at therapy with her, and then later they're just looking into each other's eyes, and I was like, girl, if you don't jump this man's bones right the fuck now. And then she did. So happy. So happy. I just really they really should be together. She fucked up, and I don't blame him for breaking things off. I mean, she was being really weird about everything. I completely think that were I in his position, I would have done the same thing. But they really do feel like they belong together. And I love when she's talking about the circumstances of getting pregnant. And the therapist, understandably, kind of presents well, you wanted the relationship to continue, and he didn't. And then you turned up pregnant. Wouldn't you think that was because you were trying to prolong the relationship? And she says no. And I mean, from what we have seen, I really believe her that it really wasn't about that. But she says that, she's a good mom and she doesn't feel like she's ready to let go of that role in her life. But it is intimidating. I mean, being a parent is just intimidating anyway. And just don't even get me started. It is so wild to me. The idea of continuing to be a parent after one kid is completely raised and out of the house. I know people who have been in this position. I have had friends in high school who had siblings that were way older, or parents who were a lot older. And yeah, I mean, the amount of energy that you need to raise a baby is just astronomical. So that's part of why that shit happens when you're younger, usually, because then you can actually get through it and be sane. But she does say, and I thought this was interesting, that the fact that he had a vasectomy, and I think she said that she's on birth control or something, and she got pregnant anyway, felt like fate. It felt like she was meant to have the kid. And I kind of like that addition to the storyline, because Jean is so logical so much of the time, and there being an aspect of this that feels almost like she's having faith, that there's, I don't want to call it a supernatural thing, because it's not really quite accurate, but feeling like there might be some sort of universe looking out for her, or a hand of fate that's pushing her in a certain direction. I really expected her to reject most of that kind of thing. And by most, what I mean is, if you are a very logical person, you can usually understand where people are coming from when they believe those things. Even if you don't actually think that's what's going on, you can be like, okay, but I respect and understand the fact that many people do have faith and they do believe in like a bigger purpose or somebody looking out for them. So while I don't think this is true, I will respect it being included in their narrative or in their, way of thinking about the situation. So that was kind of where I thought she would come down on things like that. And instead, here she is just kind of being like, it just sort of felt like it was meant to be in a way that I wouldn't have thought I'd see from her. And I like it. It adds like an aspect to her that feels a little bit more vulnerable and a little bit like less sure of herself, because that's something that you do just have to accept. It's not like you have control over that. So yeah, they're assigned this thing. Excuse me, I'm hiccuping. They're assigned this like task to look. Why am I hiccuping? Oh my God, Ashleigh, I'm so sorry. Hold on. Oh my God, I almost have no water left. Why am I like this? But they have to look in each other's eyes and talk about the emotions that come up. This scene was so well done, because you can see exactly what's going on with each of them. The camera pans from one to the other. When it's on Jakob's face, he's got a very, there's a hungriness, there's a look and a little bit of a smirk. And it is very clear that this dude is thinking, God, she is hot. Oh my God, look at her. Like, there's just a feeling of everything has been left to the side, and he is seeing her without the baggage. When she is looking at him, it's very different. It's not that she doesn't find him attractive, because Lord, who wouldn't? But it's more that it's regret and like this affection that feels sort of desperate and pointless. So you can see her like almost getting choked up, and she manages to keep that sort of under control, but it's still leaking out, and her voice kind of trembles. And there's just a serious feeling of sadness to it, because she just is like appreciating him wanting to be involved in raising the kid, but she wants more than that, and she is aware, so she thinks, that that's off the table at this point. So then he says, I think this is stupid, and all I can think about is how I want to kiss you. And they wind up in bed together. And the next day she says that it was a mistake and that they have to agree to never let it happen again. And that the fact that they do still care about each other has made things confusing. And I love this so much, because what is happening clearly is that she believes he gave in to this momentary, like, this momentary emotional flare, and that he is going to feel the same way about things now that it's the morning and things have happened already. So what she's doing is sort of trying to lay the groundwork for him to be able to extricate himself with some dignity. And I mean her having dignity in this, like whether he has the dignity or not, she's just trying to make it so that it won't be him rejecting her. It will be her acknowledging the facts of what really happened here. And instead he's like, I think it's more than that we care about each other. So why don't we just actually try and do this properly? Which is clearly what she actually wants, but she would never have said it. She would never in a million years, he has to be the one to say it. And that's just sort of how it is with the two of them. She obviously has her vulnerable side, but she isn't willing to be the first one to say anything. And she's not the first one to make a move on things. And she's the most uncomfortable initially, and she's talking about how in the therapy session, about how him having his stuff all over the house was really difficult. And now she's talking to Otis about them moving in. this is something, and Otis has a really good response, which is like, I'm not going to live here forever, which truly, that didn't even occur to me. The fact that, yeah, he's going to go to college. He's going to find his own place. Like, even Ola, she's not going to be here for longer than him, probably, you know, like the fact that they want to move in when he is so close to leaving home really does make for a perfect situation in a lot of ways. But initially, all I could think is like, you know, there are so many people who I know personally who have had to open their homes to friends or family who wind up falling on hard times, or who wind up with health issues and they really need like daily help, or they wind up in like, you know, situations that are untenable and they have to go stay somewhere because they're not safe where they are. And it's the sort of thing that I always really respect when people are willing to do that. And yet I can't imagine myself being willing to do it because I am so protective of my space. I love hosting parties. I love having people around when there is a time limit, but have like inviting somebody into my space that I have created for myself and knowing that this is going to completely interfere with any routines I have, such as they are. It's going to take space away from things that I have dedicated to certain, you know, aspects of my life, and they're going to be in a room, and you know, it's just so much. And I'm somebody who really struggles with changings of plans. That's something that's really hard for me. I make a plan and it's not like I can't deviate at all, but I really need time to adjust to the concept that I might need to deviate. And there's that sort of like really huge upheaval of a change in the situation of how you live is so overwhelming. And like I said, I just really respect people who are able to go into those situations with a modicum of grace and just, but this is the right thing to do. But this person needs me. They're able to really be so compassionate and unselfish. And I like to think that were I in a situation with somebody that I truly cared about, I could still find that. But my initial reaction is just sheer panic, you know, like just, yeah. But Otis's response, like she calls him, she says, thank you for being adult about it. And really that is what it is. It seems like he is aware how much this means to her. And it's not like, I won't go so far as to say that he like saw this coming, but I think that he knows what it takes for his mother to even consider something like this. So the fact that she is asking him for this kind of permission is evidence of how much she cares about this guy. And therefore, because she doesn't ask very much in those sorts of respects often, he is willing to be like, you know what? Yeah, because obviously this fucking really matters, you know? And I don't know. I just really liked this whole thing. So I want to talk about that out of the gate. And then we are going to talk about Otis and Ruby. So I told you guys last episode, this is so funny. I told you guys last episode about how I had a boyfriend in high school that a lot of people considered sort of beneath me, you know, whatever that means. And one of the major factors was like, he was actually attractive, but he didn't do anything with himself, as is the wont of so many men. Let's be perfectly honest. The pressure on women and young women and girls to look a certain way is so early in its like blossoming that we learn how to turn ourselves to an advantage much sooner in life. That is not to say that girls don't go through awkward periods where they are not worrying about their appearance at all, because God knows it took me a long time to get to the point where I like worried about my appearance in a way that was productive. But there is just a sort of training that goes into growing up, like, you know, as a girl, and boys just don't really get that very much. So the guy I was seeing, I kept on thinking, like, he's got a really nicely shaped body. He's got a good figure, as they say. He has, like, excellent posture. There was all of the like elements were there, but he just had really bad hair and he dressed badly. And so I did do a bit of a makeover thing with him. I will not say it in any respect that it really resembles what Ruby does, though, because Mike was willing. Mike wanted a makeover. Mike recognized that he didn't really know how to dress. He was very aware of the fact that like that he had all of the clothes that he wore were things that he had not like gone and shopped for. It was clothing that his mom bought for him and then just gave him to wear, and he didn't care about it very much. So going into all of it, it was a lot more of him steering things and me like assisting with like what goes with what looks best on his body. And it wasn't an unwilling, I'm forcing you into this because I'm embarrassed to be seen with you kind of thing. It was more like, for me, I already think you're hot and other people don't see it. And I think if we put you in the right outfit, people are going to go, oh, okay. Which I will say is what happened. I had a couple friends who like came up to me the day he wore his first new outfit and were like, word? And I was like, I told you, I tried to tell you. But yeah, we did a whole thing. We went shopping and I brought a friend with me and we picked outfits and then we did his hair over, and the hair was not great, but it was the 90s. So it was for the 90s. And so in some ways I wanted to sympathize with Ruby, but the energy behind all of this is so misplaced because she just straight up like, she's just a rude person. Jakob calls her rude later on because she says you're a good looking couple for old people. But truly her being like, you know, I can't be seen with you looking like this. The only thing that I'm on her side with is the fact that she got him to shave off that fucking mustache, because truly, I'm pretty much anti-mustache out of the gate. I'll be honest, but there are men that can pull a mustache off, and it is not Otis. It's just not. It's like, you got to have like a thick, full mustache. You've got to have a way of like carrying yourself and of dressing that supports that look in a way that feels like they go together. And Otis is just, his whole manner of being combined with the mustache just felt very like perv looking through the hole in the locker room wall kind of thing. You know, it was just creepy. I did not like it. That said, what she tries to dress him in is hilarious. So essentially, she's trying to give him the same aesthetic as her friend. I cannot remember his name. I feel like it starts with an A. And it is, in my opinion, a really gay look. Like, it just, for me, the moment that I saw a dude dressed that way, I would be like, okay, that guy's gay or queer. You know, either. It's just, there's a look. And I know that we all don't want to deal in stereotypes, but you all have to admit that there are outfits that you see and you're going to look at somebody and you are going to be like, this is their sexuality. And can you be wrong? Absolutely. But there are fucking signals. Women who have brightly colored, oftentimes short asymmetrical haircuts, who wear overalls or graphic tees and have a lot of pins and wear like thick-soled boots, that is a queer woman. Like, that just, I can say this as somebody who's got 80% women of that style on my feed. I know whereof I speak. So this look, for me, is not something I want my boyfriend in. It does not look right on him at all. I think that he could use a makeover. I do think that we could find a style for him that isn't the t-shirt that looks like it would be on a 5-year-old boy, and that he would still like it. But what she tries to do is make him look like her friend, and that is the wrong way to go. Like, you can't give somebody another person's style. You can help them find their own and go through that with them in a sort of sense of discovery, of trying new things. The biggest hurdle for people who don't know how to dress is that they don't know where to start, and they are afraid of doing something new because they're worried people are going to like laugh at them for trying something new when they've worn the same couple things their whole lives. You just have to help them get through that part. And a lot of times it will become clear, okay, they actually do have a sense of style. They just never really felt comfortable giving it any real effort. Ashleigh, it says Anwar. Oh, Jean says in this episode she's 58. I thought she was playing 8 to 10 years younger, to be honest. I was putting her like 52 in my head. So yeah, I guess like definitely younger, but not that much younger. Ashleigh says, I honestly feel like it was one of those occasions where the actors themselves does something weird with their look between seasons and the writers and cast take the opportunity to rip into him. That's an interesting question, because I was sort of thinking that they told him to grow it over the summer, or summer in quotes, over the break, because this is just such a thing with boys when they start to like, you know, their bodies begin to change and they don't really know how to handle it. So you get weird facial hair. Fucking goatees, soul patches in the 90s were the thing. Soul patches and chin straps. And a chin strap, a lot more dudes can pull off because it doesn't require that much facial hair. You don't need to it doesn't need to be all that thick and consistent. So I saw way too many fucking chin straps, kids. It is no good. But yeah, so I really understood some of what she was trying to do here, because I do think his actual style is lacking. And I think that he doesn't love it either. I think it's just easy. But the whole attitude with her, and she's talking to Jean and says something like, oh, I would never date Otis. We're just having casual sex. The fact that she's allowed to sleep over also, truly, I could have never. I don't think I have ever met anybody at my age when I was in school who was allowed to sleep at their boyfriend, girlfriend's house. That was just never done. And I don't know how I feel about it in this context, to be honest. Part of me feels like I respect Jean for allowing this sort of openness with the two of them, because most of the reason that people don't let their kids sleep over is because they don't want to acknowledge that they're likely having sex. So it's supposed to be almost an implicit agreement that sex is allowed, when it's yeah, but they're having sex. They don't have to sleep in the same room to be banging literally anywhere else. But it's this sort of collective denial that we agree to participate in. So in that respect, a big part of me is just all right, maybe we should just let kids sleep at each other's houses. Let's be more honest about what's going on here. On the other hand, though, when you're that young, it feels still like you're in your fucking parents' house. You get to have somebody stay over when it's your place. But come on, man. There's something a little bit too, I'm letting them into my space in a real way that I don't think I would like as a parent. Just, this random kid who just is here when I'm in my robe eating breakfast in the morning. I wouldn't like it. And that's just another thing with me having territoriality issues. So yeah, they go to school and he gets mocked for the way that he is dressed. She assures him that Anwar lent the jacket and is fine with it. And then it turns out he is not. And this leads to Anwar changing his look up to flaming pimp. Is that what he calls it? Pimp on fire. And that look, which is amazing, truly, he looks like he should be on the WWE. That look is what leads to Hope at the end of the episode doing an announcement and telling everybody that uniforms are required. And I think she says something ridiculous, starting tomorrow or starting next week. Anybody who knows what it is like to deal with school uniforms knows there is no starting something like this, because the headmistress just says so. And I may be wrong because of the fact that it's like very clearly British, you know, and so there's a different way things work. But in the US, a principal or headmaster is not going to be able to just blanket statement, now we do uniforms, and that shit fly. Absolutely would never happen. One, you have to find a supplier of those uniforms, agree what the school colors and the overall uniforms are going to be, find a place locally that will stock them and do so very, very quickly, and stock them in enough sizes that everybody is guaranteed to be able to fit, because they are very limited a lot of the time. And that's all aside from the amount of money that it can cost to get uniforms. There is a thought process out there that if you are enforcing uniforms in school, it keeps kids from getting distracted by the fact that they are, that some of them are dressing on trend and others aren't, that some have money and others don't. And it takes that away and evens the playing field. The truth is, school uniforms are expensive. And a lot of kids that don't come from money wear a lot of thrifted and secondhand clothing because they cannot afford to buy new shit. And a uniform forces them to buy new shit. But if you are wealthy, you can have a fresh uniform every day. And if you aren't, you have the one uniform that you have to make last all week. And that winds up showing up who has money and who doesn't in the end anyway. And also, don't even get me started on the like quashing of personal expression, because I'm sitting here right now with like magenta hair. I had colored hair when I was in school. I had a nose piercing. I wore wild outfits. That was how I figured out who I was in many ways, was like literally wearing costumes. And I think that the idea that we have to keep kids solely focused on school is ludicrous. And that's like such a major thing in this episode, is like the setting up of the uniformity overall, not just in terms of clothing. Trying to get kids to walk in single file so that they don't interact with each other. And her thought is like, so that they can process what they just learned in class. They are not robots who get input and then need processing time. They are people growing and figuring out who they are amongst other peers in a social setting, and acting like that isn't actually worth exploring or giving freedom is obscene. Truly, like the idea of like, well, we're preparing you for the real world. No, you're not. If you're doing that, you're absolutely not. And this was something that I found really jarring personally, because I'm a rule follower. And so I like getting guidelines I'm meant to follow most of the time. But when I left high school and I realized that I could be in a college class and just get up and go to the bathroom, and I could just go and nobody stopped me or questioned me about it. There wasn't anybody standing in the hallway outside making sure everybody was in class. There wasn't anybody standing outside the bathrooms making sure you weren't in there too long, that you weren't smoking in there. I'm not trying to say that we don't need to be supervising high school kids, because God knows what they fucking get up to. I know what I got up to. That is not the same thing, though, as the kind of weird military aspect of managing kids that I see coming from a lot of people. And it's so unhealthy to me. And it's so missing one of the big points of what school is for. School is not just to learn from books from teachers. School is to learn how to be. School is to learn who your people are, who you get along with and don't, the kinds of personalities that jive with yours and don't, the kinds of hobbies that you are into and the ones that you don't care about. It is meant to be a small pond where you are figuring out major aspects of your personality. And you experiment, and that will go on for quite a while. You know, we act like it ends at high school and then you just decide what you want for college and that's where you do. Like, that's super not it. But I fell for that. I'm sure a lot of other people did. So her trying to frame it as like, we need to keep people like away from one another so that they have room to think. It's the kind, like when Jackson replies with, oh, so like something kind of Buddhist, she laughs and says no. And honestly, when he said the Buddhist thing, I was kind of like, okay, I could see that as an ideal. I think it's absolutely not going to happen with high schoolers, but I could see like wanting that. And then she laughs and says no. And I was like, oh, okay, never mind. So I'm kind of interested because like what we had seen previously in the last seasons was this headmaster whose grip is fading. Its grip is failing, I guess is how you say, not fading. And people are pushing the envelope more and more, but it never really felt like he had that much control. And he just was trying to keep the status quo as it was, but he wasn't trying to enforce anything new. And he wasn't trying to make his mark on things. He was trying to preserve a tradition that existed already. And what Hope is trying to do is completely turn things over and make this school something it never has been. And trying to completely change something, I'm never going to be mad at inherently. I am all about just trying out a whole new thing. I have done that many times in my life. I feel like we should be doing that as a country. There is a lot in me that agrees with that idea. But when your premise is to squash all individuality and social interaction to accomplish that, you are ruining a very important portion of these kids' lives. And as somebody who I really look back at high school and realize how many things I sort of figured out about myself in that time and wonder what it would have been like if I was at a school that was stricter. Like I had a friend who, she wound up at the same high school as me, but for middle school, she went to a private Catholic school. And we had been friends before she transferred to that school. So we kept talking while she was going to it. And there were so many things that like weren't allowed. Even things like wearing handkerchiefs over her hair. Cause in the 90s, that was a thing. She wasn't allowed to do that. Anything that was like the facial piercings, hair colors, of course, those were out. You couldn't wear socks of certain colors. You couldn't wear shoes that had thicker soles. Cause again, the 90s. So there was like platforms were like very in style. And anything that was like a statement pretty much in any way was not allowed. Meanwhile, my experience was all statement. That was like what I was focused on all the time. And I really do wonder if I had been trying for that and I instead wound up at a school like hers, as somebody who does like following rules and takes that stuff pretty seriously, my personality could have really gone in another direction because they only nurtured that side of me. And I feel like that would have been such a shame. Like, imagine how different a person I would be right now. I like to think I would have found that side of myself eventually once I was like released and freed from it. But what happens after you squash things that harshly is that people go in the other direction in such an extreme way that it can be harmful. You can provide parameters for people to safely experiment, but trying to stop them entirely means that they are going to do bonkers shit once they are out of supervision. I mean, this is the whole thing behind sex education in general, right? Is the idea that like, if we don't educate kids or we make it clear that sex is bad, they just won't have sex. No, that's not what happens. They just do it unsafely. They just do it in a way that is not like, they have no knowledge to guide them. So they wind up doing things that are very dangerous for themselves, for other people, because it's treated as something that shouldn't be acknowledged. So this is going to be really interesting. And I'm curious what Otis's mom's reaction is going to be, because I feel like she's really going to have something to say. about the uniform thing specifically. Overall, the changes in the school are the kind of thing that I imagine parents wouldn't really hear about. The uniform thing being something that she has to pay money for and enforce at home, that is a different thing. And I want to bring up specifically here the character. We learn their name this episode, and I don't remember what it was, but it was a character that ran into Jackson in the hallway. That character, whose pronouns are they, them, is undoubtedly going to be assigned a girl's uniform if they do that, which I'm guessing, because of the way Hope is operating, I'm guessing that they are going to have boys and girls uniforms. Most schools that have uniforms, that is how it works. Girls have skirts and boys have pants, and girls have like stockings or knee socks, and boys have like a vest or tie. It's really ridiculous. But if that person is made to wear that clothing, talking about quashing people's expression, enforcing like a gender binary for what? Why? Genuinely, why? And this is something that I remain just mystified by, is people's knee-jerk reaction to allowing genders of all types to wear clothing of all types. I will never, ever understand the fear behind it. It's truly like just an alien concept. Like, who cares? It always comes down to that for me. Why do you care? What is that doing to you? Because clearly it's doing something to you. You're acting like you're getting, somebody's putting a hot cigarette butt against your arm. I am not excited about Cal. Thank you, Ashleigh. About seeing Cal having to like perform femininity in a way that they are clearly not interested in or comfortable with, or, ew, just truly ew. Ugh. I always feel so bad whenever anyone is forced, because of circumstances, to resort to pretending that they are who society believes that they should be, because it feels so unnatural if you've gotten to know a person for who they actually are, to watch them then have to sort of retreat into this like parody. And, if any of you have ever had a friend who is trans, but like maybe their family doesn't know, or they don't present publicly as their like gender, they are in different circumstances wearing different things, or they're acting differently, and it's so awful to realize they can't just fucking be. That's not allowed for them. It's just not even an option. And I take for granted so much in terms of like, I can wear everything I want because I perform femininity in an acceptable way. Like, my entire office is pink, and nobody is going to say a word about that to me because I'm a girl. And so pink is like, not only is it acceptable, it's preferred, actually. So I'm doing it right, and it's fine. I just happened to be a woman who happened to really like pink, and that works out for me in such a way as to give me a stamp of approval. It's an accident, Like, what if I didn't? What if I was a guy and this was how I felt like decorating? Forget it, It's just... why? It's so arbitrary. What are we doing? Ugh. Anyway. Ashleigh says it's never just the line. That's right. That is, Raheem is concerned when he sees the like single file line on the floor. And I can't remember. I think it might just be Vivi that's saying like, well, maybe it's not too big a deal. It's just a line. And he's like, is it? And it clearly isn't. Ashleigh says, I wore makeup to school one day in 2011 and a nun dragged me to a bathroom and rubbed it off my face. Not even just made me take it off, made me stand there as she scrubbed at my face. See, this is what I'm talking about. Genuinely, what are we concerned about here? That makeup as a teen is going to suddenly mean that you're getting a train run on you in the bathroom? Like, first of all, if you're getting a train run on you and that's what you want, good for you. Secondly, oh my God, everybody, what is your Ashleigh says, frankly, I always think for those kinds of people, it's because it forces them to realize they've bought into this non-existent binary their entire lives, and there's a whole different side of things they would have been free to explore if interested, and it's too late for them now, and they've invested too much into this being who they are fundamentally. I think that's really true, Ashleigh. I think like who they are fundamentally is really the crux of it, is that people have a notion that they themselves have committed so much time and energy to. And to see somebody not doing that is insulting to them because they put their time and energy into it. So what the fuck? And anytime that people are confronted with the idea that something they have taken for granted as how things are may not actually be how things are, folks react really violently to that. And it's like violently in terms of physically acting out, but also just mentally. It will throw them into an uproar in their heads. And I say this as somebody who's pretty fucking open-minded and managed to adjust to learning new things about how people lived and expressed themselves over the course of my life fairly easily. I still struggle sometimes with somebody doing something that, like, there's a dissonance in my head about it. And it's, you know, I work through it and I recognize it for what it is, but not everybody has that kind of self-awareness to step back and be like, well, why do I even think this? And, you know, there are folks out there who genuinely believe that people expressing a different gender identity than the one they were assigned at birth means that they are part of the crumbling of the fabric of society. And I can't, like, I want to laugh, but those people are dangerous and they are bullies and they are out here taking people's rights away, and they're not to be joked with, you know, or joked about. So it's just like this tough place where I'm like, you are a joke, but I can't treat you like you are because you're so bent on hurting people that I have to take you really fucking seriously, even though what you represent is idiotic and absurd. It's just, I hate it. Anyway, okay, so talked about that, talked a little bit about Otis and Ruby, and like pretty much what happens is she tries to get him to wear this like lavender turtleneck. I love at one point he's wearing a turtleneck and Adam says like it makes your neck look really long. It's not even like really an insult so much as like, it's just not you, dude. You know, like he is trying to be like, you should change your clothes, but the way he points this out isn't inherently insulting. It's just more like, what is that? And the whole thing with her leaving this like lavender turtleneck for Purple Day, it's preceded by a sex scene between the two of them where he's saying yes and she's saying no. And I'm assuming that it's him saying that he's about to come and her saying that she's not there yet because of the way that it like winds up. But I was so confused in the moment about what was going on. They're fighting even as they're fucking, like, you know, I mean, I guess that's a vibe, but I don't know. And when she gets dressed right away, he asks if she wants to hang out and she says that she has to take care of her dad. I have forgotten about what happened to her dad. So Ashleigh, if you want to remind me, I know that she like I think she came clean to him and told him last season, but it's a struggle, whatever's going on. And it's just the two of them. So I think it's just the two of them, unless I'm mistaken. She's going home to do that. She has like a good reason to be getting up and heading out right away. It's not like I just can't stand to be around you kind of thing. But when he offers to come with her, she genuinely doesn't understand why he would want to. Her first question is, do you want to have sex again? And he's like, no, I thought I could help. And she's immediately like, oh no, I'm good. Thanks. Otis is dating his mom a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. This is a girl who is like a little scary, as he puts it. Very interesting. Has really like strong boundaries to the point of maybe being a little bit closed off. And kind of puts her own shit on him a little bit, you know? Like, there's a lot here that mirrors the way that his mom held Jakob at arm's length so much, despite the fact that they were just like very into each other and very obviously into each other. And her adjusting as quickly as she does to him being like, all right, 1, I'm not wearing that purple. And 2, if you don't like it, this is just not going to work out. But I do think you're interesting and I want to actually get to know you better. I really like that her response to it was kind of a moment of like, okay. She doesn't really fight him on it. It's more that he stood up for himself. I think that wins her over on this, because as a woman who has a really strong personality, I will tell you that every guy that I have dated, moments when they have really put their foot down with me in a certain way have been the moments where I like suddenly was like, I think I'm into this guy. It's not to say that I need somebody who like will be a dickhead or will be, you know, like, it's more that if you are going to be willing to listen to me at times, and I know that you will be because I've seen you do it, and then you will also draw a line for me and make it really clear this is where it is. That feels extremely balanced and adult to me, and that will impress me. Versus a guy who expects me to do everything that he wants, which, guess what? Never been in a relationship like that, because fuck that. I just absolutely would never. But I have been in relationships with guys who had no spine at all. And I wound up sort of like their mom. And that's no good either. You got to find a way around those things, you know? So I think that's kind of what works for her in the end. And also the fact that everybody already knows that they're sleeping together. I think it's just a small jump to just being like, all right, fine, we're just together, you know? And I really enjoy at one point, she hands him her purse, but she also like holds her hand out for him to hold her hand. And it's like a kind of smirky, like she's proud all of a sudden of him in a different way. It's not about the aesthetic. It's about the energy that he's carrying since he decided that he's going to be himself. That is something that she can understand and respect. And I don't know. I don't love them together, but I do like the journey of this. And I really agree with his mom, who was like, I think you want something more meaningful, but I also think it's good for you to experiment with different types of relationships. 100%. You know, like, I know that for me, I am somebody who I want somebody to be committed to me almost always. And I have engaged in really casual relationships, but truly it was just kind of, it's not like they aren't fun, but they just weren't for me. It's just kind of, you know, like casual sex is one of those things that tends to benefit men more than women because women's bodies take longer to get to know. So men can like have an orgasm at casual sex a lot more easily than women can. And thus, I think I've grown to value a like one particular partner situation because sex is bad otherwise. And I just don't have the fucking patience, you know? Oh, he has multiple sclerosis. Her mom's around, but has to work a lot to pay for her dad's medical bills. Okay, cool. Thank you, Ashleigh. So yeah, that's what's going on with those two. So now I have to jump over, of course, to, there's two real quick things I'll touch on. And then I want to talk about Eric and Adam. The quick things are Lily finds a crop circle and then gets this like notification on her computer about it being invited to some, the 8th is coming, something like that. And I am not sure what to think of this. Lily's, you know, she's got her whole alien thing. She's typing up this story and she's got like the tentacle things on her fingers while she's typing, which is hysterical to me. I can't help but think that this is some kind of setup, but I don't know if it's necessarily a setup in a malicious way. It might be something that's cute, you know, or if it's something that's sort of like unrelated to her and she just happens to be around for it. I don't know, but I don't know what to think of it. All I will say is that her and Ola are adorable, and I just really enjoy that we're having kind of a no drama moment with them right now. Then I have to talk about the headmaster. What is his name? Michael, right? And he is faking going to work. And as it turns out, his brother can tell. I really didn't expect that to work the way that it does. But this is agonizing. He fakes going to work and comes home and walks in on his brother mid-conversation with his wife about how it's pitiful because he's faking it. And honestly, it is pitiful. Like, it is. There's just no getting around it. Faking that you have a job is so sad, dude. And like, it's incredibly on brand because this is a man who would rather fake a thing that's acceptable than accept his actual situation. That's just how he's been living. So he hears his brother and his wife talking about how like he's been there for weeks and he needs to go. And this is the kind of thing where I feel personally like if I had somebody move in with me and I knew that they were out actively on job hunts and interviews, I would be giving them at least a couple months because it's tough out there. And as long as I know they're actually trying, that would be what I need, you know. But these people are obviously not givers. Like they're doing the best they can in their tiny little like hearts, but it's clearly really not coming from a good place. It's an obligation. It's just, it sucks. So while he's faking going to work, the teacher who does the music, oh my God, there's an a cappella bit. Fuck the pain away. Guys, it was just gorgeous. Like, I'm not even going to front. It was beautifully done, and I was just straight up impressed. Is it appropriate? Absolutely fucking not. I mean, just come on, straight up. It's just not. However, they did an amazing job, and I was like, God damn. I mean, even the instruments, like they're doing so, and this is what sort of, I think probably when they get assigned another song that isn't part of the vibe of that class, they're not going to sound like this anymore because it's like a passion that's coming out from a sense of truth that they're all feeling about the piece, you know? So that teacher goes outside and runs into Michael in his car, who's faking going to his new job. There's a real awkward scene, but he offers, if you need anybody to talk to, I'm here. And this is the kind of thing where I personally do not offer this sort of thing because people will take you up on it sometimes, and I don't actually have the energy. I'm not going to pretend that I'm here for you if I'm not actually going to be here for you. I don't say that sort of shit without fully intending to back it up. So I don't offer it most of the time because I have very few people in my life that I care about a lot and that I am willing to give that kind of time and labor to. And then there are people that I hope for the best and I wish them well, but I just, once I have handled the other people that are closest to me, I don't have any more to give. There's nothing there. So offering Colin, thank you, Ashleigh. Offering is the kind of thing that I think some people do because they feel they should without actually intending to back it up. Don't take that risk. If you're not really going to be there when somebody needs you, just don't offer. Just don't do it. I know it makes you feel good in the moment, but they're going to recognize it for what it is, and you're going to feel like obligated in a way that's going to make you resent the friendship, and you don't want it. But Michael turns up on his doorstep because he said he would be there, and now Michael has nowhere to live because he pretends that he found his own place. And I I really want to know, him admitting to Colin that he needs somewhere to stay is a pretty big step for him. And I think that he only feels comfortable doing it because in his mind, Colin is more pitiful than him, which truly is bullshit because Colin has his own whole space and a hot girlfriend that he's fucking all the time. So Colin has it fucking made. But I think in Michael's perception, Colin is sort of sad. And so letting another sad person know that you are temporarily going through a sad patch has a very different feel than telling your brother who's super successful the truth about anything. So I want this to be the first step in Michael acknowledging the reality of the situation, but I'm not sure that's what this is. So we'll see. I just realized I didn't talk about, I have so little time left. I'm so bad at this. I'm going to talk about Maeve and Isaac real quick because that's how we started things off. But like I said, I really didn't expect Isaac to tell her himself. I thought there would finally be some sort of conversation between her and Otis where Otis blurts it out and she realizes that Isaac has been lying. And there is a part of me that wishes that's how it went, just because I want Otis to know that she wasn't ignoring him. In the current standing of this situation, Otis is still unaware she never saw the message. So Isaac being found out to have lied would have implicitly included Otis finding out that this was all a massive misunderstanding and that he got thrown under the bus. And that's not what's happening. So in that respect, I wish it had gone another way. However, like I said, I really do feel a slight uptick in my respect for Isaac in the fact that he was willing to tell her. Waiting until they were kissing, however, is so deeply a bad idea that I wanted to slap and shake him. Truly, dude. What made you think that was the fucking time? And it was probably not that he felt it was the fucking time. It was just, we're about to kiss, which means things are moving, which means I can't keep this from her any longer in good conscience. But he really needed to figure that out before here. He really did. And he put it off and it wound up blowing up in his face as it should. And Maeve reacts exactly how I expected, which is, I can't believe after the issues with trust that you know I have, that you would lie to me and continue lying to me for months now, and then not say anything until this moment. And he's trying to justify it by saying that Otis doesn't understand her. And she's like, clearly you don't fucking understand me. And that is a real lonely moment because she agrees that Otis doesn't understand her. And here comes this guy that she thought did, and in a fundamental way didn't. Yet again, Maeve feels like nobody really gets her. And that is just a sad, lonely place to be. It's a really hard spot. And all of us have felt this way at some point in our lives, you know, that like I am in a particular situation and there's nobody I can talk to about it who's really going to get it. You know, you would think Isaac would be the one to get it, considering what he's been through in his life, but no. So she backs off from him and he tries to make up and she is not fucking having it. And when she goes to school, she talks to Otis because she had talked to Amy in some really adorable scenes. Their friendship is like so pure and good, and I love it so much. And Amy is still like having difficulty with the concept of sex. She's just unsafe feeling all the time. And she says that she would like to talk to Otis's mom or somebody like her. So Maeve reaches out to Otis and he talks to his mom, who's really touched by the fact that he is asking for her help in this way. It's just like a really great scene. I love the overlap between her being impressed at his response to Jakob moving in and him asking her for her help on this. They both clearly, it's like a moment, you know? But when she talks to Otis about this, he says that he and Ruby are now official, because she had made an offhand comment that he didn't seem like a casual relationship kind of guy. And so the door that may have opened is once again closed. I will say, guys, this is the kind of thing that normally drives me fucking crazy, is a couple that every time things look like they may line up for them to be together, something happens and keeps them apart. But this show is so loaded with incredibly well-executed plot lines that have nothing to do with Maeve and Otis. And frankly, Maeve and Otis, who felt like the centerpiece of the show, are sort of relegated to the sidelines at the moment, that I don't mind this at all, because that doesn't feel like the point. It doesn't feel like they're doing something artificial to generate drama. It's just one in a dozen simultaneous storylines that we're following that all feel really important with characters that I care about. And so they can get away with this, and I'm not mad about it. You know, it just almost feels funny. Like, yep, there it goes again. So, okay, now that I'm fucking over time, let me talk about Eric and Adam, because I want to know what everybody else thought. In my opinion, it was immediately obvious that they both thought they were going to bottom. And I found it really weird that Eric doesn't seem to be getting it. Like, he just doesn't seem to be getting it at all. And he is, I think it's just maybe because of Adam having the like sort of like bad boy, more macho personality type, he assumed Adam was the top to such a degree that it just truly didn't enter his head in the kind of way that I know I have had happen, where something looking back, I'm like, that was really obvious, but my mind never went there. So it just, you know, but to me, the signals were so clear that Adam was trying to bottom and Eric was not getting it. And so it winds up in this awful scene where Eric thinks he's being rejected. And what Adam is trying to say is, I don't want to top you. I want you to top me. And I really like this because it's an acknowledgement of the trope of the more masculine guy automatically being the top, and the show just kind of being like, it's not always like that. And I like that that's being addressed. And also, I think it's really interesting that there is an assumption that Otis made that I think a lot of us could have made, that maybe Adam, and I think I might have expressed this myself last episode, that maybe Adam was a little bit worried about anal sex being too far, that like there was something about it that felt too degrading or humiliating in some way, and so he wasn't going to be willing to take it to that level. And instead, it's that he is not only wanting to have anal sex, he's also willing to take on the more quote submissive role. And I put that in quotes because it's like not, but it's seen that way, which I think a lot of people would consider unexpected. You know I wasn't expecting it to go this way, but once the scene began, I was like immediately aware of what was happening, and it takes Eric a while to figure it out. So the whole oh yeah, Ashleigh says, I think what Otis has been saying about Adam not being ready really did get into his head. I think you're probably right. And I know that Adam says it's none of Otis's business, and it probably isn't really, but it's hard to believe it's not your business when it's like your best friend and they might get really hurt. You know, there's a part of me that kind of wanted to be like, it kind of is his business, at least a little. But also, I did love when Eric tells Otis that he's going to go all the way, and Otis tries to express some concern, and Eric's like, that's not what I want. And then they just start dancing up the stairs together. It was so cute. And at one point they notice that like line, and he's like, I think we're supposed to go single file. And so he bounces over and starts dancing up behind Eric on the one side. It was just a really cute scene. I liked it a lot. A lot of good friendship stuff going on this episode, you know? But when he talks to Otis, Otis suggests writing down what he's thinking or talking with his back to someone. And it's a really nice foil with what happens between Jean and Jakob. Their thing is needing to look into each other's eyes while they communicate, because that is the way they're connecting. Adam, it's the opposite. Somebody looking at him clams him up. And I thought that was kind of cool to have the two things acknowledged, that like neither is better. There are circumstances and personalities for which each will work better, and there's nothing inherently better or worse about either one. And when Otis suggests writing down how he feels, Adam has like a weird reaction. And it turns out it's because he's struggling in school and he actually wants to do better. And he's very aware of the fact that he doesn't write well. He doesn't read well. He has trouble comprehending. And so he winds up going up to that teacher. I can't remember her name either. It's Colin's girlfriend, and asking for help. And she agrees to help him, but also is like, you better fucking mean it though. I don't want you to be wasting my time. And I think he does mean it, but I'm curious to see what it's going to look like for him to try and help him, you know? And it's remarkable to me how much better Adam is doing overall with his father not in his life. Like, a part of me wants him to get to be separated from his dad for the remainder of his life, because it just seems like the absence of his father is good for him. But I want his father to grow, you know? So I would like his father to fucking wise up and learn some things and become better, rather than just depriving Adam because it's easier. So the two of them wind up in Eric's bedroom, and he says, I want you to put your dick in me. And Eric turns around and says, I would love to put my dick in you. So yeah, good for them. Emily, thank you. Emily Sands. So yeah, very good episode, really packed. I'm really enjoying this season already, and I really wonder what's going to happen. Otis and Ruby, who fucking knows, truly. If he gets to know her, like, what is that going to be like? I'm very curious. All right, I have to wrap, but thank you, Ashleigh, again for feeding me names. I appreciate you. Thank you, everybody who's listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.